So for the last, I want to say 3 years, more than 3 years, I got acclimated to thinking about a specific person obsessively. Um, there's literally not a moment where I'm not like, oh, they would like this. Oh, I wish I could tell them about that. Oh, they would think this, or just on and on and on and on. And so one of the things that's really important for us to recognize is when we are building habits. And one of the habits that occurs in an abusive relationship, or at least, okay, so I've had a couple of different types of an abusive relationship, but my most recent one was one where I was with a person who felt very insecure, but loved how I made them feel, but didn't think that I wanted to be with them, and that I would meet someone else and leave them, which is fundamentally incompatible with how I am, because even if I met a person that I liked better, let's say that was true, like I personally would not ever leave, because that's not how I operate. That's a point of personal integrity for me. But on the other hand, this is a person who has straight dropped people that he's been with for people he thought were better, kind of like future shopping, partner shopping. So for him to have that fear completely makes sense. But anyway, so in this relationship with this person, it just, because he wasn't comfortable in himself, because he was driven by fear and insecurity, he couldn't tolerate me having a different opinion or belief or idea. I've been in relationships before where it's like, oh, we don't disagree. And then you just sort of like, you deal with that, in some way. But for him, that was not a possibility that he could tolerate. He needed me to agree with him. And so he would just push and push and push and push and push. He felt he was right. He felt he was justified in what he was doing. He felt like being right was more important than the connection. Of course, in his mind, he's protecting the connection. He's keeping himself safe. He's preventing me from leaving him if he just changes how I think and feel and believe to agree with him. So anyway, over time, being in that dynamic, I got conditioned and in the habit of thinking, well, what would he think? And constantly, well, what does he think about this? What would he think? What would he think? It wasn't, what do I think? It was always in comparison, in contrast, there's this term in physics, it's called quantum entanglement, where watch me be wrong, but it's like where two atoms are connected in some way, and you cannot define the one atom without the other. And that is what this relationship turned into. I couldn't define myself without, what he thought, what he felt, what he wanted, what he needed, it wasn't reciprocity, mutuality relationship. It was very much focused on what he needed. I didn't recognize it in the beginning because I was in the middle of dealing with the abusive situation that I was in, trying to take care of my son. And so he had like an understanding that like where areas I was pushing back in were, legitimate, because they were particularly like around my kid. Like, I was very much like, no, we are not arguing in front of my son. That is not okay. I'm not doing that, and so I felt that there was more, I think I read more adaptability into him in the beginning stages, because a lot of what I was doing was around parenting and being a mom. And so, he would let kind of me push back in those areas. And so I wasn't recognizing that, like, in general, he needs me to agree with him. So anyway, I built this habit of constantly on my brain, what would he think? What would he say? What would he think? What would he say? Because I didn't want to have those arguments. I didn't want to have to like you know, I didn't, I wanted, like, can we just be chill? But obviously I was, frustrated in and of myself because it was very controlling. Okay, ding ding, weird thing, personal thing about me, is that I actually do want to be in a more traditional relationship dynamic, where a man is the head of the house, he's the leader, but he's leading and listening. I'm not, I'm not expected, he's not trying to control how I think or feel or believe, and also that person would be thinking about what's best for the family or best for the relationship and, guiding us in that direction. So I can see how I allowed these relationships to continue because at my core, that's kind of a thing that I want, but it was going off in this weird way. And I was thinking like, oh, if I just explain it, like they'll understand. They'll change what they're doing. And to be fair, like, the abusive thinking patterns didn't change, but some of the behaviors did. So I was thinking, oh, he does change. He does grow. And it wasn't that he changes and grows. It was that, oh, okay, I recognize like this is a bad abusive thing, so I'm going to stop doing it, like arguing in front of my child. But he would just move on to another thing because the underlying entitlement thinking patterns, behaviors still existed. So anyway, here I am in this situation, and I'm just constantly like, okay, what would he think? What would he think? What would we think? So now we're not together. And I have still been, I've built that habit. I've built that thinking pattern. I've reinforced those neurons of constantly not conceptualizing myself in and of myself, but conceptualizing myself in relation to this other person, like a messed up version of quantum entanglement. So anyway, yesterday I had my last session with my counselor therapist. Oh no. Anyway, it was a good thing. It was time, but it's hard to let go of people we care about who've been a real big part of our lives and a big support. And anyway, so we had our last session yesterday, and she was reflecting back to me some things that, some areas of growth that she's seen, and, things that I've said. And I'm literally was like, what? What do I, let me write that down because I didn't remember so much of it. But she said something, and I'm going to read it. She said that I had removed myself from my own stories for so long. And it just like, that just hit me. I was like, oh, because I was trying to come in, and go, okay, well, here are both sides. Here's what I think. Here's what they think, and like, because I'm trying to find, like, I want to know what's accurate. I want to know what's true. Like, am I being bad somehow? Am I being abusive? Do I need to change something? Like, I was so like, I'm worried about being abusive while obsessing over what this other person thinks, instead of going, you know what? I think a thing, and it's okay for me to think this. I get to have opinions. I even get to be wrong, Obviously, I don't think I'm wrong, but, like, this other person just kept pushing. Not only did he think he was right, but he needed me to change my mind. Needed me to change my beliefs, my emotions, And I wanted to feel like it was okay for me to think what I thought or feel how I felt or something, Instead of going, like, I'm a human being, and I get to think things, and I get to feel things, and I get to have beliefs. And if I'm with a person who fundamentally doesn't agree with any of it, if our Venn diagrams of reality do not overlap enough, then, like, just we're not compatible. But so the hook there, is that I made him feel a certain way that other people haven't made him feel because of how and who and how I am, how I feel, how I love. And he really, really liked that. And he didn't want me to leave him. And so he started being controlling and insecure. And he felt that it was my fault that he was feeling this way. Blame, shame, blame, shame, blame, shame. And, making it a nightmare to not conform and comply. And it just, I got to the point where I was like, I feel addicted to you. I feel addicted to you. Help me, please. I would beg him to block me, and he absolutely wouldn't. Recently-ish, I had said, please just agree to never show up, never leave me things, never message me, never contact me. Like, will you respect that boundary, so that I can just relax and I know that you're not going to like show up one day. And he absolutely refused to do it. He refused to block me, except for one time when somebody else made him. But for the most part, he will never block me. And he will never agree to never contact me again. He absolutely refuses to do it. Even though I'm telling him, like, please, this is the thing I need. This is the thing I need to heal. Like, he just... Honestly, quarantine is the only thing that made it happen. Going into lockdown. That's when I truly started making strides in my healing, because he finally, wasn't coming around, and I wasn't anxious, feeling like, oh, he's going to show up. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Like, what's the right thing? And I'm starting to get that feeling again that he's going to come back around. I'm like, oh. But I'm in a much better space about it now. But I think back on like all this effort and energy I have expended in trying to understand this person, understand our dynamic, figure out ways to heal it so that we can be together. Like, oh my God. Going into therapy, telling my therapist about this other dude's opinion. Like, I'm sure she was like, okay, yes, but also you're here for you. Like, what do you think? How do you feel? What are your opinions? You're coming in. I was coming in and only talking about what this other guy felt and thought and, believed. And like, was I right about what I was doing? Was he right? Did I need to change things? And, I was putting so much effort and energy into understanding him, his perspective, his beliefs, his motivations. Was he putting that effort and energy into understanding me? Was he putting that effort and energy into perspective taking for me? Understanding where I'm coming from? Having empathy for me? He told me a story about, he was telling his therapist about something that happened and how she had told him I didn't have empathy for him. And this was like way deep into like he's being now physically not okay, physically aggressive, and I was like, I was really taken aback, because that is a completely different situation. He's in there telling his therapist about what he thinks and feels. And I guess coming to the conclusion that I, didn't handle it right or came at it from the wrong perspective or something like that. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, that's very different from what I'm doing in therapy. I'm literally sitting there going, this is what he said. This is what he thinks. This is what happened. Is he right? And I'm, like, that was really kind of like a critical moment for me in recognizing that I was doing all this effort and energy and work to understand him and his position and trying to be fair that he was not extending to me. It literally, any conversation that we have revolves around what he thinks, what he feels, what he wants, what he needs. Like, what about me? What about what I think? What about what I want? What about what I feel? Even if it's wrong, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm here too. And so I just, like, I had to come to this realization, and it kind of all clicked yesterday. Thanks to my therapist, that I had erased myself, that I was doing so much work this other person is not doing. Even when we've messaged, it's all about how he feels. what he wants, what he needs, how he's right. And I'm literally like, there's literally nothing about me in here. Like, you would have no idea why this person feels the way they do. Like, it makes no sense, you know? I'm sitting there like, you know, these are all the things that I'm impressed by you, and I love this about you, and da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, like, I understand this is your perspective, but, like, this is mine, and da-da. And I'm doing, like, if you read through it, I'm doing so much work. And he's just sitting there going, you know, I don't know if he loves me as a person. I think he loves how I make him feel. Because there's no sense that I exist in his mind as my own individual person with my own individual thoughts and feelings that are valid. Because we're all human beings. We all get to feel a certain way, think certain things, you know. What we don't get to do is try to control people based off that, you know. So like in politics, like we all have like our own opinions and beliefs and whatever, but, you know, we start running into problems when we're trying to control people around that. So anyway, I just wanted to reflect to anybody. If you're obsessively thinking about a person, if you're constantly considering everything from their perspective by default, that you may have some learned thinking patterns from being in the abusive relationship, and that part of disentangling mentally, emotionally, energetically, whatever it is going to be about, you know, undoing that habit, right? It's not a good habit to have. I don't know that I want to say good or bad, but it's not been helpful for me. And so, you know, unwinding those patterns that, you know, we can redirect, we can go in a different direction. You know, I can recognize like, okay, what's important to me is that I am in a relationship dynamic where the other person is also doing work. To perspective take for me, to empathize with me, to understand me. And then to think about our relationship dynamic mutually from a mutuality perspective. You know, not just I'm trying to meet my own needs. You know, it's hard. Relationships are hard, you know, especially when we're younger and we're coming at it and we've got these like trauma pasts and these woundings, and, you know, we just want to be happy, but then we start, you know, getting into patterns that aren't helpful. Anyway, so I just thought I would pass that along in case it's anything anybody else needs to hear. Anyway, have a great Saturday, and I'll talk to you next time.